All right. So, some quick stats right now. So, an estimated 13.1 million people traveled by air in India in January. And that's a 4.7% increase from the previous year. Now, flyers like all of us could be first time flyers, we could be cantankerous office goers, we could be holiday goers, and drop off a grievance, and we have the social media on. So, is it getting difficult now, Alok, to handle customer expectations today?
So, firstly, Devina, thank you for having me here. Uh, it's a great topic, deeply philosophical. So, yes, customer expectations are getting more and more difficult to handle, and rightly so, because customers have way higher expectations than what they had maybe even a year ago. And it is our job as an airline or as a travel company to make sure that we, measure up to that.
Right. And also, you have been associated with the aviation industry since 2007, right? And what are the opportunities that you spot in the sector today? Because this sector has been mercurial, quite ups and downs. But what are the opportunities that you see going ahead?
Wow. So it's way before 2007. I've spent almost my entire,
Entire career, right?
working career in the aviation sector. Uh, so, look, our industry, aviation and travel, is uh, is both big and growing,
Right.
and this is the India travel market. And you couldn't ask for more as a travel company or as an airline. We are already the third largest market in the world. All the growth drivers are intact. We are highly leveraged to the GDP.
Right.
So that's growing. Uh, we have been doubling in size every 5, 6 years for the last 15 odd years. Uh, all the indicators are that we will continue to have a very healthy growth going forward. So it's not really the demand side or the size of the market which is of concern. It is really how do we cope up with this growth in a profitable manner, and how do we sustain that profitability. So that, I think, is the key challenge, and I can speak for the airline world. That is the key challenge for us. So are there structural issues with the industry? I don't know, but it's our challenge is how do we, one, cope with the growth, and second, how do we remain profitable, and how do we sustain that profitability?
Very simply and nicely put. And one important point you mentioned is how do we cope with the growth? Now, your airline is tapping the tier two and tier three markets largely. All right. And how different is it to tap into these sectors than, let's say, have more fleet in the metros?
Okay, so let me step back a bit. Uh, we are a fairly new brand in the India market. Uh, Air India Express has been a subsidiary of Air India, and following the privatization of Air India, we are wholly owned by Air India. Air India, Air Asia India, which was renamed as AIX Connect, also got subsidiarized. It became a 100% subsidiary of Tata's, and the two airlines of Air India, and the two airlines are on track to a merger. Uh, Air Asia India had a fairly small footprint in the country. Uh, this business is about size and scale, so it was subscale. Air India Express was in a fairly small niche, a very profitable niche, but in a niche. Once the merger happens, and we are on track to that merger, and I head both the companies. Right now we are two separate legal entities, but we are on path to an integration. We want to expand our footprint greatly across the domestic India market, and we also want to maintain our presence in what we call the short haul international market, which is about 6 hours from India. Uh, in terms of volumes, the domestic India is massive. You mentioned the stats. It's about 160 million in size per annum. The next biggest chunk in terms of numbers is the short haul international.
Right.
We have a fairly strong presence there, and we want to leverage the knowledge that we have on the tier 2, tier 3 cities. So the way we are looking at our business model is that we will focus as the merged Air India Express, having a low cost model. We will focus more on tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. These are the markets where we are seeing the largest growth. And there
Very
are many
interesting.
reasons. So we want to focus on these markets, which are more value conscious, which are, less about the frills. And Air India, the parent company, will focus more on the premium
Right.
routes to from India and between the metros. And because we have an arrangement whereby we feed, defeed the networks of the both of us by way of code share agreement. So we will provide the feeds that Air India needs for long haul, and we will focus more on the tier 2, tier 3 cities. And this space is really exciting because we are seeing, the growth rates are actually twice that of metro to metro markets.
That's huge, right? That's almost like an untapped market right now because even the established airlines are right now looking at the smaller cities. So you have competition in that way. You know, when we look at airlines, there are some airlines which have built their brands on punctuality. Some have the frills, some have the experience. What is the kind of brand building that you want your airline to project? We often don't realize small things. They're not small, actually, they're very significant. The uniforms, the designs on the planes, they are an extremely attractive feature and they speak a lot about the airline. So, what is the kind of brand value that you want to bring in for your passengers?
Great question. So, and I often tell our teams this, that we have the unique opportunity to actually build a whole new brand, a whole new organization from ground up. So it's about two organizations coming together, roughly, similar size, AirAsia India, former AirAsia India and Air India Express. And now we are entering a phase of growth. The brand is new to the domestic India market. So what we are also doing as we build our network, as we build our fleet, we have launched this brand. We did a rebranding, a brand refresh, and a totally new branding, and that has been launched in the domestic India market. What we realized is that because of the tier 2, tier 3, cities in India, the new, young, aspirational India, half the population is under the age of 30. This is the market that we are tapping into. And we must reflect some of that. So there is a vibrancy, there is a optimism, there's a huge growth opportunity that is there in the markets that we are entering in. And our brand persona must reflect that. And we are also more than a brand.
Right.
Air India, especially under the Tata's ownership, we have a very long past. We have literally been the cultural ambassadors of the country. So we want to also carry that legacy forward. So what we have done, if some of you have seen the new branding, it is fresh, youthful, and it also it is also literally the fabric of India. So there is some part of the tail design. Okay, the tail is used as a giant canvas, and that captures the diversity and the spread of the country. So
Give
we
me
are,
some examples.
yeah. So one of the first designs was the Bandhani pattern. There is patola. There are and the interesting backstory is that the design agencies first said that you have a fairly large aircraft order. aren't we going to run out of designs
Not in
for,
India.
yeah, but not exactly, not in India. So there's a long way to go. So we have 11, 12 aircraft which are painted in the new livery. Each of them have a different tail representing some part of the country, from north to south, east to west. So I think the brand captures the diversity of the land. It captures the youthfulness and the energy of the country, and but it also goes beyond the brand. Uh, the 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 ethos, the spirit of the company also has to reflect that. So yeah.
When you mentioned the spirit of the company, and also earlier you mentioned about the merger, again, two distinct companies, very different work cultures coming together. How difficult is it? Because you're also at the same time handling high expectations of customers, at the same time bringing in people together. How did you go about it?
Okay, so again, something interesting that we often talk about in the leadership team. It is not just two companies coming together, because we are entering a phase of rapid growth. So as many employees who are, it's not just A plus B, but there is also as many number of people who are fresh recruits. So it's an amazing melting pot. The average age of the company is under 30. Uh, we are Bulk of our recruitment right now is, of course, a flying crew, both for the cabin and for the cockpit. And uh, the culture that we are trying to establish now, what we are doing is we are picking up the best of the cultures that the two organizations brought, and we are actually going about it in a very structured manner. That there is an end state culture that we have, uh, you know, uh, thought of, and we have those attributes that we want reflected, right across the company, and we are moving towards that. So it's not just the integration, merger, growth. It is also about the transformation of the company, and culture and people is a big part of that.
Uh, Not many realize how difficult it is to hire for the airlines industry. There's a scarcity of pilots, there's a scarcity of cabin crew. It's also a sector which often doesn't get its due, because we as passengers often are probably some of the worst customers. And amidst all this, what I was reading is very interesting points about your airline is you all are going to really remote regions to hire. And that also is something which has not been done before. Could you throw some light on it, on the kind of remote hiring that you all are doing?
Okay. So, again, this is a call that we took pretty early on, because our markets are going to be tier two, tier three cities of the country. We also thought that the employees that we have should be reflecting that spread and that diversity. So our crew actually come from these very tier two, tier three cities that we serve. So we have scouted for talent at least in 20, 25 cities and towns of the country, and we are amazed at the talent that we find. So we pick up the talent, they go through our training program, they go through a very rigorous training, and I think what we are able to do is we are able to build a company, build a culture which is really reflecting the country. And it's amazing to see all that coming together, and it's amazing to see that energy.
Which is some of the most remote areas you all have hired from?
Absolutely. So it could be Trichy, it could be Dehradun, it could be places in the northeast. Okay,
Oh, okay.
Imphal, Nagaland. There's a lot of crew which come from the small tier two towns of southern India, of northeast, north. So it's pretty much
Even
all over the
tribal
place.
regions, I've heard that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have we have a team that does the recruitment, and they are very well trained to spot talent, to pick up talent, and then groom them into into the employees that we want them to be.
This also speaks a lot about the sensitization that you do, because it's not just hiring, but also ensuring that they amalgamate easily into your larger company.
Absolutely. So the other thing which is a little different about Air India Express is that a large part of our crew are actually based in different small towns of the country. So we have as many as 12 crew bases. Once people are hired, then they are given the option of getting posted or getting positioned in the places that we want them to be in.
I possibly cannot be part of a digital summit and not talk about AI. Now, we understand the onslaught of AI in tech sector, in markets, in fintech, in startups. What is the kind of impact that you foresee AI might bring in the aviation sector?
Okay, so let's look at it this way. I mentioned about how important it is for us uh, to manage this growth, to be profitable and sustain this profitability. Now there is no silver bullet, right? Unless there's somebody who's coming up with a completely disrupted model. Okay. So the way I look at it, it's a giant optimization game, and it plays out both on the cost side, plays out also on the revenue side. Uh, on the cost side, a large part of our costs are beyond our control. So fuel is almost
Right.
40% of our cost. You can't bring that down. But what you can do is you can be more efficient with it. So if you can drive efficiencies, if these efficiencies can bring the unit cost down, then that's what we need. On the revenue side, there is a massive amount that can be done. So the airline sector has been a fairly early mover in techniques like revenue management, loyalty, distribution. Uh, these are areas that fit out very well with digitization and AI, and I think this is how this is going to go forward. So just to give you an example, almost 80% of our customer resolutions are today handled by a chatbot.
Right.
Uh, when you come to revenue management, predicting demand, which is fundamental to how revenue management works, and then making sure that you have the right uh, price for the right customer. Again, an area where technology and AI can work very well. So these are just some of the areas where I think there is going to be a massive change that we will see in the future around AI, in some of these areas, and there could possibly be more.
So a lot of predictive analytics, etc., will be taken over by AI.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And my final question before I ask if audience has any questions for you is, as a customer, and not just as the CXO of an airline, but as a customer, what are the top three things that you would want from the airlines industry today?
So one, certainly, as a customer, I would want a basic core product, on time, clean aircraft. That's something that I would certainly want. I would want a good price, and I would want to be seen as an individual and not as not as a part of something. I would like to be seen as an individual, and I think that is another area where technology is going to allow us to segment the market more deeply, and to bring offers, bring price points which are closer to what you would want.
Like a loyalty program, probably for me, or
Absolutely,
you already
absolutely.
have that light luggage, where I don't need to stand in queues, etc. I can move
Absolutely.
ahead.
So that's another industry leading effort that we've just introduced. That why should you why don't we have a price point, or why don't we have a product which is for people who are willing to fly with no baggage?
Yes.
So you get a special fare, and if you don't have, and you don't have to go into the queue.
And the third point?
Three. So these are three.